The 3 moons of Asterion Prime hung low over the crystal citadel, casting silver shadows across the ancient fortress that had stood for 12,000 years. Tonight the air hummed with anticipation as beings from across the galaxy gathered for the Festival of Flames, an event held once every century to celebrate the Empire's dominance over all known worlds. Rhea Caldwell wiped the sweat from her forehead as she adjusted the enormous cooling system in the lower maintenance halls. She was 28 years old, with auburn hair tied back in a messy bun and hazel eyes that had seen too much loss. Her hands, calloused from years of engineering work, moved with practiced efficiency as she recalibrated the thermal regulators. The festival above meant nothing to her. She was just trying to survive another day in the service of Emperor Dravok, the ruthless ruler whose empire stretched across 40 star systems. Above her, in the grand amphitheater, thousands of spectators filled the floating seats that spiraled upward into the night sky. The Emperor himself sat upon the obsidian throne, his body covered in scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight black. His eyes glowed with an inner fire that had burned since before Earth had discovered space travel. Beside him stood his only son, Prince Kylor, a younger version of his father with the same cold, calculating gaze. The festival's main attraction was about to begin, a challenge that had become legend across the stars. Every 100 years, the Empire would capture a dragon hatchling from the void rifts, cosmic tears in space where ancient creatures were born from pure stellar energy. These dragons were not mere beasts. They were beings of immense power, capable of destroying entire fleets with a single breath. The challenge was simple, yet impossible. Whoever could bond with the dragon hatchling would be granted a wish by the Emperor himself, anything they desired, no matter how grand. But in 12,000 years across 120 festivals, not a single being had succeeded. Most died trying. The rest were left broken, their minds shattered by the dragon's primal fury. Tonight's hatchling hung suspended in the center of the amphitheater, trapped within an energy cage that crackled with blue lightning. The creature was magnificent and terrifying. Its scales shimmered with colors that did not exist in normal space, shifting through hues that hurt to look at directly. Wings, still small and folded, trembled against its body. Its eyes, large and filled with galaxies, darted around the crowd with pure terror. The dragon was no bigger than a large dog, but everyone present knew it would grow to the size of a starship within a decade. If it survived. If it was not broken first. Emperor Dravok raised one clawed hand and the crowd fell silent. His voice, amplified by technology and magic combined, rolled across the amphitheater like thunder. Citizens of the Eternal Empire, tonight we continue our sacred tradition. Before you is a child of the void, a creature of pure chaos and destruction. Whoever can make this beast submit, whoever can prove they possess the strength to dominate such power, will receive any reward within my ability to grant. The crowd erupted in cheers. Prince Kylor smiled coldly, already imagining who would fail first. But remember, the Emperor continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow everyone could hear. Failure means death. The dragon's fire does not forgive weakness. Its mind does not tolerate the unworthy. Choose wisely before you enter the cage. Below, in the maintenance tunnels, Rhea heard the announcement through the ventilation shafts. She had heard it before, 3 years ago during her first month of service. She had watched as warrior after warrior entered the cage, watched as the dragon defended itself with desperate fury, watched as bodies were carried away. The memory still haunted her dreams. She was about to return to her work when she heard it. A sound so small, so broken that at first she thought she had imagined it. A whimper, a cry, not of rage but of fear. Rhea froze, her wrench halfway to the next bolt. She looked up at the metal grating above her head, where thin streams of light filtered down from the amphitheater. Through the gaps, she could just barely see the energy cage and the small form trapped inside. The dragon was crying. In the amphitheater, the first challenger stepped forward. Thornak the Destroyer, a warrior from the Silicon worlds whose body was more metal than flesh. He entered the cage with confidence, his forearms carrying weapons designed to incapacitate without killing. The crowd leaned forward. The moment the energy field closed behind him, the dragon struck. Not with fire or claw, but with a psychic scream that sent Thornak stumbling backward. His weapons clattered to the ground as he clutched his head, his metallic face contorting in agony. Within seconds, he was dragged from the cage unconscious. The second challenger lasted even less time. The third burst into flames. The fourth went mad. With each failure, the crowd grew more excited. With each scream, Rhea felt something tighten in her chest. She tried to focus on her work, but the sound of the dragon's fear pulled at something deep inside her. She thought about her own daughter, Natalie, who had died 5 years ago when their colony world was attacked by void pirates. She thought about how Natalie had cried for her mother in those final moments. How Rhea had been light years away, unable to save her, unable to even say goodbye. The dragon cried again, and it sounded so much like Natalie that Rhea's hands began to shake. By the time the 10th challenger failed, Rhea had made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She set down her tools, wiped her hands on her coveralls, and began climbing the maintenance ladder toward the amphitheater above. She did not have a plan. She did not have weapons or training or any of the things the other challengers possessed. All she had was the memory of her daughter's last moments and the absolute certainty that she could not stand by and listen to another child suffer. Rhea emerged from a service hatch at the edge of the amphitheater, right next to the floating platform that surrounded the energy cage. Guards immediately moved toward her, but she was already climbing over the railing. "Wait," she called out, her voice somehow carrying across the sudden silence. "I challenge for the dragon." Emperor Dravok turned his burning gaze upon her. "A human? A maintenance worker presumes to enter the sacred challenge?" Rhea's legs trembled, but she stood her ground. "The challenge is open to all citizens of the Empire. You said so yourself 3 years ago when you conquered Earth. We are citizens now. That means I can try." The crowd erupted in laughter. Prince Kalor sneered. "This will be amusing. Let the human try. Her failure will remind her kind of their place." But as Rhea walked toward the energy cage, something happened that silenced the mockery. The dragon stopped thrashing. Its eyes, filled with swirling galaxies, locked onto Rhea's face. And for the first time since being captured, the creature went completely still. Emperor Dravok leaned forward, suddenly interested. "Open the cage." Rhea stepped through the energy field and the universe held its breath. The inside of the energy cage smelled like ozone and copper, a sharp metallic tang that made Rhea's eyes water. The blue lightning that crackled across the invisible walls cast everything in a harsh, flickering light. But all of that faded to nothing when Rhea looked into the dragon's eyes. Up close, the creature was both more beautiful and more terrifying than she had imagined. Its scales were not just one color, but thousands, each one containing what looked like an actual miniature galaxy, complete with spinning stars and nebulae. They shifted and changed as she watched, responding to the dragon's emotional state. Right now, they pulsed with deep purples and midnight blues, the colors of fear and pain. The dragon's wings, still too small for flight, were pressed tightly against its body. Its tail wrapped around its legs in a protective coil. Dried blood, black as void itself, stained its claws where it had tried desperately to break free. Its breathing came in quick, shallow gasps, but its eyes, those impossible eyes, watched Rhea with an intelligence that made her breath catch. This was not an animal. This was a person. A child person, terrified and alone, surrounded by beings who saw it only as a weapon or a trophy. Rhea slowly knelt down, making herself smaller, less threatening. She was acutely aware of the thousands of eyes watching her from beyond the cage, but she forced herself to focus only on the dragon. She remembered what had helped Natalie when she was scared, back before the attack, before everything fell apart. "Hey there," Rhea said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're frightened. I know you don't understand what's happening, but I'm not here to hurt you." The dragon's nostrils flared, testing her scent. Its body remained tense, coiled like a spring ready to release. One claw scraped against the floor, leaving gouges in the supposedly indestructible material. Outside the cage, Emperor Dravok leaned forward on his throne. "She speaks to it as if it were a pet. How long before she burns, do you think?" Prince Kalor checked a chronometer on his wrist. "I give her 30 seconds. No human has ever lasted longer than 45. But 30 seconds passed, then 45, then a full minute." Rhea continued speaking in that same soft, steady voice. She did not reach out yet. She did not try to touch. She simply talked, the way she used to talk to Natalie during thunderstorms. "I had a daughter once," Rhea said, and her voice cracked slightly. She was 7 years old. She loved to draw pictures of dragons, actually. She said they were beautiful and misunderstood, That everyone thought they were monsters, but they were really just trying to protect themselves. The dragon's head tilted slightly. Its eyes, which had been darting around looking for escape routes, focused more intently on Rhea's face. "She would have loved to meet you," Rhea continued. "She would have asked if she could paint your scales, tried to figure out what those galaxies in them meant. She believed dragons chose their riders, that it was never about domination or force. It was about trust." A single tear rolled down Rhea's cheek. She did not wipe it away. "I couldn't protect her when she needed me most. I was working on a station 3 systems away when the pirates attacked our colony. By the time I got the message, by the time I could get back, she was already gone. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to tell her one last time that I loved her." In the amphitheater, the laughter had died completely. Even those who saw humans as inferior beings felt something in Rhea's words, something raw and true that transcended species. "You remind me of her," Rhea whispered to the dragon. "That same fear in your eyes. That same desperate need for someone to understand, for someone to care. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you're here, that you're scared, that all these people see you as a thing instead of a person." Very slowly, Rhea extended her hand. Not toward the dragon, but simply holding it out, palm up, and offering. "I can't promise I can save you. I can't promise anything except this. If you let me, I will try to understand. I will try to help. And I will never ever hurt you intentionally. That's all I can offer. That and the truth that right now, in this moment, I see you. Not as a weapon or a prize, just as you." The dragon stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment. Then so slowly that at first no one was sure it was happening, it began to unfold. Its tail loosened. Its wings relaxed slightly. Its breathing deepened. And then it did something that had never happened in 12,000 years of festivals. The dragon took one small step forward. The crowd gasped. Emperor Drevok stood up from his throne. Prince Kalor's mouth fell open. Rhea did not move. She barely breathed. She kept her hand steady even though her arm was beginning to shake from holding the position. "That's it," she murmured. "You choose. Whatever you want. I'm here." The dragon took another step, then another. It was close enough now that Rhea could feel heat radiating from its scales, could see the individual stars spinning within each one, close enough that if it wanted to kill her, one quick strike would do it. Instead, the dragon lowered its head and pressed its nose against Rhea's palm. The connection was instantaneous and overwhelming. Images flooded Rhea's mind. Not words, but feelings and memories. She saw the void rift where the dragon had been born, a place of pure energy and creation where new stars ignited and died in seconds. She felt the joy of first flight through dimensions that humans did not have names for. She experienced the terror of capture, the confusion of being torn from everything familiar, the pain of the energy cage, the fear of the creatures who heard it and called it entertainment. And beneath all of that, she felt something else. Loneliness. Profound, aching loneliness. The dragon was a baby, separated from its kind, thrown into a universe that saw it as either a threat or a tool. It did not understand why everyone hated it. It did not understand what it had done wrong. It only knew that it was alone and scared and everyone kept hurting it. Tears streamed down Rhea's face now. "I understand," she whispered. "I understand and I'm sorry." The dragon made a sound, but this time it was not a scream or a roar. It was a purr, deep and resonant like the hum of a star's core. Its scales began to shift, the dark purples and blues giving way to warmer colors, soft golds and gentle greens. Then, in Rhea's mind, she heard something that would change everything. Not words exactly, but concepts, ideas that translated themselves into language she could understand. "You see me. You are the first who sees." Rhea's breath caught. "You can talk? I am. I think, I feel. They do not know. They do not ask. What's your name?" There was a pause and then a feeling of confusion mixed with something like hope. "Name? I have name?" "Everyone should have a name," Rhea said firmly. "What do you want to be called?" The dragon considered this for a long moment. Finally, another concept came through, this one accompanied by an image of a bright star being born from darkness. "Solara. I am Solara." "Solara," Rhea repeated, and she smiled for the first time in years. "That's beautiful." Outside the cage, the amphitheater had erupted into chaos. Some beings cheered. Others argued. The energy readings coming from the cage had spiked to levels never before recorded. The bond that was forming between human and dragon was visible now, a golden thread of light that connected Rhea's heart to Solara's. Emperor Dravok stared at the scene before him with an expression that mixed shock, fascination, and something that might have been fear. In 12,000 years, this had never happened. No one had ever truly bonded with a void dragon. They had been tamed, broken, forced into service, but never willingly connected with. This changed everything. Prince Kalor rushed to his father's side. This is impossible. She's just a human, a maintenance worker. She has no power, no magic, no strength. How can this be happening? But Emperor Dravok was silent. He watched as Rhea stood up and Solara moved with her, staying close, their bond already deepening with each passing second. He watched as the human reached out and gently stroked the dragon's head, and Solara leaned into the touch with obvious pleasure. I believe, the Emperor said slowly, that we have all been thinking about strength incorrectly. The silence in the grand amphitheater stretched like a held breath. Rhea stood in the center of the energy cage with her hand resting gently on Solara's head, the dragon's scales warm beneath her fingers. The golden thread of their bond shimmered in the air between them, visible to everyone present. Undeniable proof of what had just occurred. Emperor Dravok descended from his throne, each step causing the floating platforms to tremble. The crowd parted before him, thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds all watching as the most powerful ruler in known space approached the cage where a human maintenance worker had achieved the impossible. The Emperor stopped just outside the energy field, his burning eyes studying Rhea and Solara with an intensity that made Rhea's skin prickle. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he raised one clawed hand, and the energy cage dissolved into sparks of light that drifted upward like fireflies. 12,000 years, Dravok said, his voice carrying across the amphitheater without amplification. 120 festivals. Thousands of warriors, mages, princes, and champions from across the galaxy. All of them failed where you have succeeded. Rhea met his gaze steadily, though her heart hammered in her chest. Solara pressed closer to her leg, ready to defend her if necessary. They failed because they tried to break Solara instead of understanding her. Bold words from one so small, Prince Kalor interjected, moving to stand beside his father. You speak of understanding as if it were some great power. Understanding means nothing without strength to back it. And yet strength meant nothing without understanding, Rhea countered. Every challenger who entered this cage had power. They had weapons and magic and armies at their command. But none of them saw what was right in front of them. A frightened child who needed compassion, not domination. Emperor Dravok's expression was unreadable. You have bonded with the dragon. According to the laws of the Festival of Flames, you have earned one wish, anything within my power to grant. Name it. Rhea had known this moment would come, had thought about it during those final seconds before Solara touched her hand. She took a breath, feeling the weight of not just her own future but potentially that of her entire species resting on her next words. I want freedom for all humans in your empire. Full citizenship, not the second-class status we have now. The right to own property, to travel freely between systems, to hold positions of authority based on merit rather than species. The amphitheater erupted into chaos. Aliens of all kinds shouted in protest or support. Prince Kalor's face twisted with rage. Father, you cannot possibly consider this. It would upset the entire social structure of the empire. If humans are granted equality, then every conquered species will demand the same. Yes, Rhea said simply. They will. And they should. An empire built on oppression is an empire built on sand. Eventually it collapses, usually violently. Emperor Dravok held up a hand and silence fell instantly. He studied Rhea for a long moment and she could not read the expression on his scaled face. Finally he spoke. You understand, human, that if I grant your wish, it will fundamentally change the nature of my empire. Wars have been fought over less. I understand, Rhea said quietly. But I also understand that watching Solara suffer for the entertainment of others was fundamentally wrong. And if your empire is built on that kind of cruelty, maybe it needs to change. For the first time in 1,000 years, Emperor Dravok smiled. Not the cold, threatening smile of a predator, but something almost genuine. You have courage to match your compassion. Very well. Your wish is granted. The crowd's reaction was deafening. Some beings cheered. Others roared in anger. Prince Kalor looked as if he wanted to protest further, but one glance from his father silenced him. Dravok raised his voice to be heard over the din. From this day forward, humanity is granted full citizenship within the Eternal Empire. All restrictions based on species are hereby dissolved. Any being of any race may rise as high as their merit allows. He paused, then added with a slight smile. Additionally, Rhea Caldwell is appointed as the first ambassador of human affairs, with the authority to speak for your people in all matters before the imperial court, and Solara is granted full legal personhood, recognized as a sentient being with all rights therein. Rhea felt her knees go weak. It was more than she had dared hope for. Beside her, Solara made that deep purring sound again, and Rhea felt through their bond that the dragon understood the significance of what had just happened. However, the Emperor continued, and his voice grew serious. With these new rights come new responsibilities. Humanity will be expected to contribute to the Empire's defense and prosperity. You will be held to the same standards as every other citizen. Is this acceptable? It is, Rhea said firmly. We never wanted special treatment. Just fairness, Emperor Dravok nodded. Then it is done. Let the record show that on this day, the 120th Festival of Flames, the Empire was reborn. As the crowd's reactions continued to echo through the amphitheater, Rhea felt Solara's presence in her mind. The dragon was curious, uncertain about what came next. Rhea sent back feelings of reassurance and warmth. Together they would figure it out. Together they would navigate this new world they had just helped create. In the days that followed, news of what had happened at the Festival of Flames spread across all 40 systems of the Empire. Reactions varied wildly. Some systems celebrated, seeing it as the dawn of a new, more just era. Others threatened rebellion, unwilling to accept equality for formerly conquered peoples. Emperor Dravok proved to be a ruler of his word. Despite the protests and threats, he implemented the changes immediately. Barriers that had existed for thousands of years began to crumble. Humans who had been confined to menial labor found themselves able to apply for positions in government, military, and commerce. Other conquered species took note and began demanding the same rights. The Empire trembled on the edge of massive transformation, and at the center of it all stood a maintenance worker from Earth and her dragon companion. Rhea threw herself into her new role as ambassador. She worked tirelessly to establish programs that would help humans transition into their new status, to create educational opportunities, to build bridges between species that had never seen each other as equals. It was exhausting, overwhelming work. But every time she felt ready to collapse, she would feel Solara's presence in her mind, offering strength and encouragement. The dragon grew quickly, as void dragons did. Within months, Solara was the size of a small spacecraft, her wings able to carry both herself and Rhea through the skies of Asterion Prime. They became a common sight, the human and her dragon flying together above the crystal citadel, a living symbol of the changes sweeping through the Empire. Not everyone was pleased. Prince Kalor in particular grew increasingly bitter. He saw Rhea as a threat to the old order he had been raised to uphold and protect. He began to gather like-minded nobles around him, beings who believed the Empire had been stronger when it was built on rigid hierarchies and conquest. 6 months after the festival, Rhea received a summons to the Emperor's private chambers. It was late evening, and the 3 moons of Asterion Prime cast long shadows through the crystalline walls. Solara accompanied her, now too large to fit comfortably in most buildings but managing to squeeze into the vast throne room. Emperor Dravok stood by a window, looking out at his capital city. Without his crown and formal robes, he looked older, more tired than Rhea had realized. Ambassador Caldwell, thank you for coming. Your Majesty, Rhea said, bowing slightly. Please, no formalities tonight. He turned to face her, and his expression was grave. I asked you here because I wanted to tell you something in person, before it becomes public knowledge. Rhea's heart sank. What's happened? I am dying, Dravok said simply. The healers give me perhaps a year, maybe less. A genetic condition common to my kind. We burn bright but burn out quickly. Rhea felt Solara's shock through their bond. I'm so sorry. Do not be. I have ruled for 3,000 years. That is enough for any being, he smiled faintly. But it means decisions must be made about succession. Prince Kalor is my only heir, and he has made no secret of his disdain for the changes I have implemented. He'll undo everything, Rhea said. the realization hitting her like a physical blow. He will try, Dravok agreed, which is why I have been considering alternatives. He walked to a table where a crystalline sphere rested, glowing with inner light. This is a memory sphere. It contains the full history of my reign, my reasoning for every decision, my hopes for the future of the Empire. I want you to have it. Why me? Because you saw what others could not. Because you chose compassion when others chose cruelty. Because you and Solara represent what the Empire could become. He pressed the sphere into her hands.
Kaelor will challenge you.
He will try to discredit you, to paint you as a usurper who manipulated an old emperor in his final days. But with this sphere, you will have proof of my intentions. I don't want to rule your empire, Rhea said firmly. I'm not qualified to lead 40 star systems. I am not asking you to rule, Dravok said. I am asking you to preserve what we have begun, to ensure that the progress we have made survives beyond my death. Before Rhea could respond, alarms began to wail throughout the citadel. Solara's head snapped up, her scales flickering with agitation. Through their bond, Rhea felt what the dragon sensed. Danger, imminent and deadly. The doors to the throne room burst open. Guards rushed in, their weapons drawn. Your Majesty, we are under attack. Prince Kaelor has launched a coup. His forces are moving through the citadel. Emperor Dravok's expression hardened. So he moves earlier than I anticipated. He turned to Rhea. You must leave. Take Solara and get off-world. If Kaelor captures you, everything we have worked for will die with you. I won't leave you to face this alone, Rhea protested. You must, for the future we both believe in. He placed his hands on her shoulders. Promise me, Rhea Caldwell. Promise me you will survive this night and continue the work we began. Rhea wanted to argue, but the sound of combat was growing closer. Solara sent urgent feelings through their bond. They needed to move, now. I promise, Rhea said finally. Then go, and remember, strength without compassion is tyranny. Compassion without strength is naivety. You and Solara have both. That is why you will succeed where others have failed. Rhea and Solara fled through secret passages that the Emperor revealed, passages that led down to the Citadel's launch bays. Behind them they could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the ancient stones. Rhea clutched the memory sphere tightly, knowing it contained not just history but hope for the future. They reached a small spacecraft, one of the fast courier ships used for urgent messages. Solara was too large to fit inside, but that did not matter. She could fly through the void itself, traveling between dimensions in ways that normal ships could not match. As Rhea fired up the ship's engines, she heard Solara's voice in her mind. Where do we go? Rhea thought about Emperor Dravok's words, about the responsibility she had just accepted, about the millions of humans and other beings across the Empire who were counting on the changes that had been made. She thought about Natalie and the world she would have wanted her daughter to grow up in. We go to the outer systems, Rhea said aloud, and through their bond, we find allies. We build support. And when the time is right, we come back and finish what we started. Together, Solara affirmed. Together, Rhea agreed. As they launched into the night sky, Rhea looked back one last time at the crystal citadel. Fires burned in several towers. The sounds of combat had spread throughout the structure. She did not know if Emperor Dravok would survive the night, but she knew his legacy would live on. The Empire was changing. It would be messy and painful and filled with conflict, but it was changing in the right direction. And Rhea Caldwell, a former maintenance worker from Earth who had simply refused to watch an innocent being suffer, would make sure that change continued. Above her, Solara soared through the sky, her scales glowing with the light of 1,000 galaxies. Below them, the 3 moons of Asterion Prime bore witness to the beginning of something new. An empire built not on conquest and cruelty, but on understanding and mutual respect. It would take time. It would take sacrifice. But for the first time in 12,000 years, the Eternal Empire had a chance to become something truly worthy of its name, and it had all started with one simple act. A human woman seeing a frightened child and choosing compassion over indifference. Sometimes that is all it takes to change the universe.